Hello everybody, welcome back to the hottest movie review series going here on YouTube. Today we'll be discussing the movie Holes. Another kind of throwback movie to the early 2000s. Just finished watching it on Disney Plus. We have I think my Hulu subscription renews on August 5th. So I'll probably cancel that, maybe go back over to something else for another month or so. And just see what happens if nothing happens by the time I turn 30. But regardless, you know how we do it. I will give you my overall impressions and grade. After the grade, if you have not seen the movie, you're going to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing the plot synopsis and character development, and any similar movies or major themes. So Holes is rated PG. It was released in 2003. It is a family/adventure movie. It has a runtime of about 2 hours. You can watch it now with a regular subscription to Disney Plus. It says, a boy is wrongfully sent to a brutal camp where the camp warden and her staff force the children in their care to mysteriously dig holes all day long in the desert. Their rehabilitation is questioned as they think something sinister is involved. Budget of $20 million, did $71.4 million at the box office, 86% liked it on Google, 7 out of 10 on IMDb, 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 4 out of 5 on Common Sense, ... Doesn't say the full grading thing. What do I think about it? Obviously it's a family movie. Anyone can watch this one. I thought it was fun. I thought it was playful. I like Shia LaBeouf, at least as an actor. As a person, he seems kind of extremely self-absorbed. But again, I had seen this movie back when I was a kid, or I guess late middle school. But overall, I think it's fun. I like adventure, and we have the finding treasure aspect. I think kind of connecting the background stories of the cursed Madame Zeroni and the first Stanley Yelnats to the timelines of the modern day, their descendants. So I thought that was an interesting timeline, or just writing script to come together. So overall, I enjoyed it. I find it fun. I find it entertaining. I'm going to give it a solid B. So I do recommend this one if you have not seen it. You can watch it with the whole family. The characterizations. The John Voight character, Mr. Sir, whose name's Marion, his character was a little kind of quirky, but it's kind of a quirky film, I guess. But overall, I enjoyed it. I recommend it. So if you've not seen it, we'll be discussing the plot now. So the movie opens up. You meet Stanley Yelnats IV, which is played by Shia LaBeouf. But he's kind of walking down the street. You get some overall narration, and basically this just talks about the family curse. He lives with his father and his grandfather, who are both also named Stanley Yelnats, and his mother in a tiny apartment. His father is trying to be an inventor to remove this odor of foot odor from shoes, and they're kind of running behind late on rent, or they might get evicted soon or something. And so Stanley's walking down the street, and he's talking about this curse that his family has, and you get the timelines jump back and forth. It's done well, but I'm going to mix up the scene order pretty substantially on this one. But he's walking down the street, and a pair of shoes fall out of the sky and hit him. Basically, they get thrown over an overpass and land on his head. And so you get introduced to Clyde Livingston, who is just the big baseball player who has donated some shoes to this charity event, and they have been stolen. And so the police find Stanley with the shoes. They go to his house, and they find a poster of Clyde Livingston's Sweet Feet shoes, or just the Sweet Feet logo hanging up in Stanley's bedroom. And so Stanley has to go to court, and he goes there, and basically they say, I think even before this you get some background. The first Stanley Yelnats, he is working in Latvia, I believe, shoveling just cow manure, or working in a barn or on a farm. And he wants to marry this girl, and the girl's father just wants a fat cow. There's another suitor who's just a really old dude, and Stanley Yelnats is a good-looking younger man, and this old fat dude with Greasy just has a fatter pig, and the dad just wants a fatter pig. So Stanley meets with a soothsayer or whatever, Madame Zeroni, who is basically tells him, take this little piglet up to the mountain and sing to it as it drinks from the water, and it will grow big and fat, and you may be able to marry the girl you like. And so that happens. They present the pig. The girl's a bimbo, just completely airhead, and she doesn't pick Stanley right away. So Stanley's just like, fine, keep the pig as a wedding gift, and I'm going to leave. And so then he goes to America and doesn't carry up Madame Zeroni. So that's the curse that's been put onto the Yelnats family. And then, flashback to modern day, and Stanley Yelnats the fourth is going to court, and he's convicted. These court scenes are really short, but the judge is like, you can either go to jail or Camp Green Lake. Now, in retrospect, I would much rather go to jail than have to dig holes all day. So that was a bad choice by Stanley Yelnats the fourth. But he goes to Camp Green Lake, which is a rehabilitation camp for 18 months. And so he drives out there, goes out there, and he gets introduced to the different people. And so the structure is you have Mr. Sir, whose name you later find out is Marion. But Mr. Sir is the John Voight character, and he's kind of like the second in charge. You have Dr. Podansky. Mr. Sir is real strict and, on top of things, and Dr. Podansky is kind of like the counselor, like the therapist that also like believes in the kids, and Mr. Sir is kind of like running the business. And so that's kind of the structure. And then you have the warden, which you don't meet till a little bit later. And so that's just the deal of the rehabilitation camp. They're made to dig one hole a day, and it's the length and width of the shovel. And then once they do that, they can go back. And so you meet some of the other inmates or juvenile delinquents. Hector Zeroni, his nickname is Zero. You have a guy named Armpit, a guy named X-Ray, a guy named Zigzag, and a bunch of other guys that are kind of like minors and extras. And so the setting is, again, it's like a barren wasteland. So I believe it's somewhere in Texas. But it just this camp out in the middle of nowhere where they don't have any water sources. And so Mr. Sir is like, Stanley, if you want to leave, leave. We're the only have water in 100 miles. There's nowhere you can go, and you'll just die, and the buzzards will pick at you. So you also learn about yellow spotted lizards, or just, I'm assuming fictional, or at least something like that. But just these lizards that if they bite you, they kill you. And so at the same time you're getting all of this, you're also getting some background, because Stanley Yelnats the first, when he comes to America, he got robbed by a person called Kissing Kate Barlow, and he had wandered up onto this thing, a mountain cliffside called God's Thumb that just looks, the edifice, the structure of the rock looks like a thumb, and he survived by finding some water up on top of the mountain. And so you just get some background there, and Kissing Kate Barlow is just a bank robber and a murderer who kisses the men that she kills. And so Stanley's great-great-grandfather got robbed by Kissing Kate Barlow. And so now they're back at the camp. You have some minor things go back and forth. Zero doesn't really talk to anybody. The first time Stanley sits down to eat chow with the boys in the yard, they're like, what are you in for? And he's like, shoes hit me. And so Zero speaks, and quickly you can kind of, I guess I've already seen the movie, but Zero speaks to Stanley because he started to pick up that Zero is kind of the reason why Stanley is there. And so, I guess probably the first time watching through you wouldn't know that. But regardless, they go out and dig their holes. Zero is the fastest digger. Stanley gets a bunch of blisters on his first day and really struggles to dig the hole. A major theme, digging a hole with a shovel like that would take you way longer. And barren, rock-hard ground, that would take you way longer than just like a half a day or like a morning activity for rehabilitation. You definitely need like a pickaxe more so than a shovel. But regardless, Stanley, has a rough first day. He gets back, and he's going to getting out for the showers, and he's going to go back to his bunk. And Mr. Sir pulls out a gun, and Stanley's thinking he's pointing at him, and there's one of these yellow spotted lizards behind him on like the shower door. And so the lizard runs at him, and Mr. Sir is able to shoot its head off. Again, it's animated, it's PG, it's not a violent or graphic movie in any way. But that's what happens, and you just have a run-in with the yellow spotted lizard. And so they're back in the tent talking about it. The next day they go out there, and they're told if they find anything interesting in a hole to give it to Podansky or Mr. Sir. And so the next day Stanley finds a fossil, and they're like, this isn't interesting or whatever. And then X-Ray comes over to Stanley and is like, if you ever find anything interesting, you just got here, and we've been here for 6 months, or I've been here for 6 months, so you give it to me, it's only fair. And so Stanley is kind of like the younger dude on the yard at juvenile camp, and so he kind of gets picked on, or has to go with the flow. And so that's what's going on there. They have another run-in in the either in the dining hall or in the rec room. Stanley's trying to write a letter to his mom. Someone takes it from him and is like throws it away, and he puts it in there anyway. But then there's like a fight one day breaks out. Stanley gets pushed into a minor character, and Stanley kind of fights back. And Zero like picks up a billiards ball, like maybe kind of ready to hit the guy that's fighting Stanley or throw it at him. And so after Stanley gets in this little scuffle, they break it up, and that's when Stanley gets his nickname. He gets his nickname, which is Caveman, which is kind of funny because we used to call one of my old fake-ass fucking friends, his hot sister, Caveman. But her name was Cayman, or is Cayman. We would call her Caveman. But so that's kind of funny seeing that as a nickname. But regardless, he now, after the scuffle, he gets his nickname. So now Stanley is now Caveman. And there's like, Stanley has now kind of like made his mark with the other people. And so you get some more flashback to Kate Barlow's timeline. And so basically what happens is she's a school teacher and she lives in a small town, and there's a local dude named Sam who sells onions, which major themes, if you cook without onions, that's illegal. But Sam is, kind of a handyman. He's got a good jovial, cordial characterization. But he helps Kate Barlow with repairing the roof for some peaches. He helps her repair the door and the window. And then, one day she's crying, and his line is like, I can fix that. And so he says, I can fix that. And then they kiss. And the town, there's a guy who, the person who owns the lake but can't read, his name is Trout. But he also likes Kate Barlow, and so Kate turns him down, and then Trout sees Kate Barlow kissing Sam. And so, basically Trout and the other dudes in the town, they burn down the school building, and they go and shoot Sam when he's rowing his boat to go get his onions. Again, super PG, not graphic or anything in any way. But Sam gets killed, they burn down the schoolhouse, the sheriff, Kate Barlow implores the sheriff to do something, and he's like, it's illegal for a black man to kiss a white woman, but not a white woman to kiss a black man. And so the next day, Kate walks in there, she's dressed all nice, has nice red lipstick on, and it's like, Sheriff, do you still want that kiss? And then she shoots him and kisses him on the cheek. So that's her folklore, her background is that they destroyed the love of her life and her school, and she became a bank robber and a murderer. And so that's the background there. And so you get that timeline. Again, that's how Kate, the school teacher, became kissing Kate Barlow, who stole from Stanley's great-great-grandfather. And so back at the current timeline, now Stanley finds something interesting. And so he finds a little tube of lipstick. It says KB on it. They don't know it's a tube of lipstick yet. But he also has this big rock that he puts in, so he kind of like knows what hole he dug, because it's, there's a ton of holes everywhere. And X-Ray is like, thanks, man, I'm going to go take the rest of the day off. And Stanley's like, well, I found it. And X-Ray's like, well, what do you mean? And Stanley's like, why don't you throw it down tomorrow when we just start digging, because your hole's almost done today, so you get the whole day off. And so X-Ray likes that idea. And so the next day he does that. And he does that, and he gets the day off. And so now that's when you meet the warden for the first time, who's a female, and it's Warden Walker. And she turns out to be basically the great-great-granddaughter of this Trout guy. And so, anyway, he gets the day off, and then they start excavating and digging really seriously around the area where they found the tube of lipstick, but really it was a hole somewhere else. And so they find nothing, and after a while they go back to digging their singular holes, and then they're out there one day digging, and one of the other minor characters, who's a Latino, he steals Mr. Sir, at the beginning of the movie, had given up smoking, and so he eats a lot of sunflower seeds. And so this minor character steals the sunflower seeds out of Mr. Sir's truck, and Mr. Sir starts driving away. He goes 300-400 yards before he notices they're missing. They're tossing the bag around to to different people to get a handful. They toss it to Stanley, and the bag spills open, and there's sunflowers everywhere. So Mr. Sir sees the sunflowers in Stanley's hold and takes him back to the warden to show him to get him punished. And so the warden, Walker, is just kind of like perturbed that he's bothering. Mr. Sir is bothering her over this, and so she has like rattlesnake nail polish that doesn't hurt anybody when they're dry, and smacks Mr. Sir over the face and lets Stanley go back to his normal hole digging. And so Mr. Sir has 2 scars or scrapes on his face now. You know, he's handing out food in the chow line. So someone says, "What happens to your face?" And he's like, "You know, does anyone see anything wrong with my face?" And we're all like, "Nope, you look real cute." And so that's what happens there. And then at this time, Zero had asked Stanley to help him start reading because he can't read. There's another minor scene where Stanley's reading a letter from his mom, and Zero's looking over his shoulder, and Stanley's like, "Stop looking at over my shoulder," and Hector's like, "I can't read." And so initially Stanley declines his offer to help him read because he's tired after digging, but then they come around, and Hector's like, "You know, I dig a lot faster than you, so if I help you dig your holes, we can be done at the same time, and you can have more energy to teach me to read." And so they start doing that. The other inmates or juveniles start to get angry at that a little bit, and then they have a big water truck, and they're filling up their water one day, and Zigzag and Stanley kind of get into a scuffle. Zero chokes out Zigzag pretty much. But then, you know, they tell Podansky and Mr. Sir that Zero's been helping Stanley dig his hole so they can help him read. And so they kind of get in trouble for that. Mr. Podansky makes fun of Zero for not being able to read and just, you know, being really degrading to him. And so Mr. Podansky asks Zero if he knows what DIG spells, and then he smacks him over the head with a shovel and says, "Dig." And then he just starts running for the mountains. So they're all cheering, and Hector has run away. So after a couple of days go by, the warden and Mr. Sir and Podansky are like, you know, Zero's was a warden of the state, no one's going to come looking for him. And so the camp itself is a little shady, but they're not worried about losing him or any of his family coming to look for him. And so kind of like the next day or pretty quickly after, they're filling up water. A new person comes called Twitch, who's just a young dude who steals cars, and they're filling up their water tank, and Stanley kind of, you know, is worried about Hector, and it's been 3, 4, 5 days or whatever, and he takes the water truck and tries to drive it out to the mountains. And so he steals the truck, but he drives it into a hole pretty quickly. The water spills everywhere, and he just starts running as well. So now Stanley and Hector are just running for the hills. Whereas Stanley is, you don't know what's going on with Hector right now, but Stanley gets out there and he finds Hector under like a little carriage wagon or something that says Mary Lou on it. He's eating something he calls sploosh, which is just like marinated peaches or preserved peaches. And Stanley's like, you know, Hector, we got to get back to camp. And Hector's like, no, I'm really not going to go back. And so then Stanley makes the connection that the mountain in the distance is the god's thumb from his grandfather's story, and they're going to go try to climb up the mountain. And so they go to climb up the mountain. They do so. Stanley almost falls at one point, and Hector holds him up by grabbing a shovel, holds down the shovel handle to him, and it cuts up his hands pretty bad. So now Stanley carries Hector the rest of the way up. They start swatting bugs, and they realize there's water all around, and then they find some water, which they drink that, which looks really dirty. But anyway, they find some onions, and they eat a bunch of onions and hang up there for a couple days. And so now Stanley and Hector are like, you know, let's dig one more hole. That's when Stanley comes to the realization that he thinks they couldn't tell if it was a shotgun shell or a rifle round or something, but he makes the connection that the KB was Kate Barlow and it was a tube of lipstick. So Stanley's very confident he knows where this treasure is. You get another flashback scene to Kate Barlow, who again, she's been robbing banks and whatnot for a while, and she's like dying in the desert herself. And Trout pulls back up. He's got like a distinctive gold tooth, and he's married to one of Kate Barlow's old students, and they hold her at gunpoint. She ends up having a yellow spotted lizard bite her, so she dies, and basically puts a curse on Trout and saying, you know, your family will dig for 100 years and you will find nothing. And so they go back to the current timeline, and Stanley and Hector, Hector has to go back into the camp to find another shovel. So Stanley and Hector very quickly find a treasure chest, and the warden, Mr. Sir, and Podansky are all, they have flashlights watching them do so, and they're going to take the chest, but then a bunch of yellow spotted lizards jump all over them. So at the same time, Stanley's lawyer had come and said basically, he's innocent, it's time for him to come home, but Stanley had been in the mountains. So now Stanley and Zero are kind of just sitting there, not trying to move, and not trying to get bitten by these yellow spotted lizards. And the next day comes, and there's still nothing has changed, and the lawyer is now coming back. And so the lawyer comes out there, and they get the chest. The warden calls Stanley a thief, and Stanley doesn't like that, so he gets up. I don't care if these lizards bite me. And they just kind of jump off of him. And so him and Hector are able to bring the chest out, and it says Stanley Yelnats on the chest. And so the loot that Kate had buried was either just Stanley's himself, or put it into a box that said Stanley on it. But that's his right to property, I guess. And so then you have some more law enforcement get involved, and they ask for Hector's file, and he doesn't have one. And so one of the police officers recognizes Mr. Sir and calls him Marion. That's when you learn his real name. All the kids are clowning him for having a girl's name. But basically they're going to investigate the entire Camp Green Lake. And so, again, this place is dry as can be, and they don't get any rain. So as they're leaving, Stanley wants to go with Hector, and since they don't have a file, Hector's able to go with the lawyer, and it starts to rain, and they're all excited. And so the camp people get in a lot of trouble, and Stanley's going to shut the trunk with the treasure chest in it, and the warden's like, please just let me see what's inside. And her big thing throughout the movie was saying, "Excuse me," in like a really snotty, arrogant kind of way. So Stanley says, "Excuse me," and then shuts the trunk door. And so then you get to the resolution of the movie. Hector had lost his mom, just lost her location because they were homeless. And when they're on the mountain, that's when Hector tells Stanley that it was him that threw the shoes over the overpass. But Hector reunites with his mom. The father, Stanley Yelnats's dad, Stanley Yelnats III, figures out that peaches and onions is the thing that takes away the foot odor. So he gets his product. They call it sploosh, which is what Hector calls the marinated peaches or the preserved peaches. And they open the chest, and there's a bunch of money in it, and there's a big treasure find. So then Stanley and Hector become next door neighbors. So they have a backyard pool party, and then they're watching a commercial for the Sploosh product. So that is the resolution to the movie. Overall, I think it's fun. I think there's good adventure. The characterization is pretty strong. A little quirky in parts, but it's a family movie, so it should be fun like that. So overall, I definitely recommend it. And if you made it to this point, you've probably already watched the movie. So thank you for watching another movie review, and I will see you on the next one.